Okay, so this is our March 10th authors meeting, and Debbie McNinch is going to talk to us about podcasting. So
Yay!
there you go.
Hello. When Tammy, or maybe it was you, Dee Dee, that asked me to do that, I was like, I'm the expert? Really? This is really scary that I am the one that you've asked to do this. So we'll try to get through something here. I released my book last fall, and so I've been kind of on the podcast train for a while. Before my book came out, I was doing some podcasts, a few here and there, not a ton, but I was kind of, launching it early and talking about my ministry, which if you haven't read my book, what's stopping you? No, why haven't you is the question. But it's about, if you haven't had a chance, because we're all busy. It's I wrote a book about how I'm a prodigal mom. And so it's about my journey with my son. And so I go on and I talk about the book, but I talk about my parenting journey and I talk about all the things related to our situation. And so I've learned a few things along the way as I've kind of been getting into this, what's working and what's not. Originally, I joined some Facebook groups. And so I guess I'm going to ask some questions as we go to y'all here too. For one, who listens to podcasts? Are you guys listeners? I'm going to be honest. I don't listen to podcasts. And so I've had to learn to listen to podcasts because my, ADHD, I guess. I'm just like, squirrel, I just missed 20 minutes. What did they say? I can't focus on them, but um, I'm learning. I'm learning to listen to podcasts as I go, but I joined some Facebook groups originally. There was one, I think it was like Spark Christian Podcast. There's another Christian podcast group that I've been on. Maybe some of you, I think I've seen a few of your names on some of those groups. And I can, in our Facebook group, I can post all of these links to all of the things that I found that have worked. So we'll have it all. I'll do that all for you guys. And I've picked up some things. How those work is usually people post in there like hashtag looking for a guest or hashtag be a guest if you want to be a guest, and you can kind of put your story, and then you kind of just wait and see if anybody's going to bite. I usually comment and will message the host and say, hey, this is my story. I have a one sheet. If you don't have one of those, that's something that you probably are going to need to get, and it's just a one page with your picture and your story and all your contact information, nothing too crazy, to send out. And so I have gotten maybe 10, 15 over the last year or so from the Facebook groups, but not like an over ton of bites on my story. And so that's just one way that I was reaching out. But after my book launched and at the first of the year, I was like, I have to figure this out because I have to get this message out there. And I'm either going to have to go door to door, or I'm going to have to figure out how to people to hear my story. And so that is why I started like researching and kind of doing some different things. And I have found one thing that is really super working for me right now is called Podmatch. Is anybody on Podmatch? I will give you a link. And I think I kind of like get credit or something. I don't know how it all works. If you join, it is a paid site. And that's another thing I'm kind of learning in this book world and Christian world. There's a lot of pay to play things. Like everything costs money for you to do something. And I was kind of at first, I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to spend, I think it's maybe $25 a month or something to be a part of that. But let me tell you, it has been really good. I have probably booked 30 to 40 podcasts since January using Podmatch. Matter of fact, I have went through all of my matches. It keeps telling me. So I have to keep going and changing my keywords in the system to see if I can get matched with some other people. And so, it's one of those things. It's a really cool system. They have it set up. You make a page in there, like they walk you through it all. And then basically, like they send you 3 matches a day, and then you can go through. And if you think you fit the podcast, you can message the host. And so that's kind of how Podmatch works. There's another site I've been paying to use also. It's called Pitch Podcasts. And I've gotten a couple really bigger podcasts opportunities coming off of that one. So that site works a little bit different. They give you the emails. It's not a direct message system so much as some of them are. It's kind of weird. I haven't really figured that out yet. Some of them are direct message there, and some of them they just give you the email to email the host. But it has been a great, I can't say enough about how much it has helped me to get just my message out there and the book out there and to just meet people and match with people. It has been so good. And so I know it's like everything's expensive, but if you really want to get out there, it's a great way to kind of get in that community. Matter of fact, they have, I can't even remember, how many 100,000 people on there or whatever it is. I was down to like number 6, like they rank where you're at. And I was like on like last month, there was a week I was like number 6 in the system, meaning that I had matched so much and done so many podcasts that it had bumped me to the top. And so it is a great way to just get out there and just meet people. At the first, you want to be, I know maybe it's just me, maybe I'm speaking for myself. You're like, oh, I would like to be on this huge podcast. And, but the reality is, I don't care if one person hears, if I'm on a small podcast and one person hears my story, I just know that the Lord has that one person listening to my story. And so I never say no. Most of these podcasts I've not heard of. Again, I'm not a huge podcast listener either, but I have enjoyed getting to know the hosts, and so many of them themselves have joined my mom's group and have related to the story that I'm telling. And so it's just been so good. So those are kind of the ways right now that I'm connecting. But once you kind of decide that you're going to connect and do this, you have to really start working on your pitch of like what you're going to say to the people when you do email them, because they're getting thousands, of hits a day for people trying to get on these podcasts. And we're writers, right? We should words should come easy for
I
us.
know.
And so I evaluate, you always want to look at every podcast that you do and see like who they are. You want to do your research before you want to be on their podcast. You want to make sure you're a good fit. You want to do your research. But you really want to like hone in your pitch each time. I kind of have some generic pitches that I use, but I hone it in depending on, so if it's more of a parenting, family podcast, I kind of have one kind of pitch I'll use. But if it's more of a, like, let's dive into theology, I have a different, pitch I'll use. And if it's kind of one of those, sometimes they say on their sites, they'll be like, sell me your pitch. Like they'll just tell you, it better catch my attention. And if that's the case, I have a really kind of fun one that I use that's called, I told my child he could be anything he wanted. What I didn't know is he wanted to be a woman. And that always catches people's attention right off the bat. And so I've actually booked a couple of podcasts based on that pitch alone. So don't be scared to be crazy. So anywho, those are kind of the ways that I find podcasts to be on, and it's all about the pitch and getting in the niche that their podcast, you need to know the audience that their podcast is reaching before you can pitch to be on it. So you can say, and then I have a list of things that I can say, I can talk about this, I can talk about parenting, I can talk about just the loss of dreams, I can talk about LGBTQ and the church. I've got all these issues that I can talk about on a podcast. And so you want to know kind of like upfront what their podcast is about and what you can talk about with your story in your book for their podcast. You get one shot really to put your best foot forward. On Podmatch, they also have a little video thing. You can record a little video of yourself kind of telling your story and your pitch. And so that's kind of fun to put out there also. So people can see your face up front to, to see who you are and kind of put a face to the story. Does anybody, before I go on, have any questions about kind of how do you go about getting on podcasts if you're getting on them? Or are there other ways that you guys are using, or? are you doing podcasts?
I have a question that's not really related to what you just mentioned, but I'm not that familiar with podcasts either. I don't,
Yeah.
I don't listen to a lot of podcasts. Or are most of these just voice, or are they video and voice?
Question.
They're both. And it
Okay.
usually says, so most of my experience has been they will always be video to record the podcast. So you're talking to somebody,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes it's only the audio that they put out
That
into
they,
the
yeah,
world.
that they brought, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, once in a while it is video also, which that completely stresses me out when it's video and audio. But
Yeah.
usually it's I've only ever done one that they just recorded, just like a phone call, if you will.
Mm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I had
It
a
just
bad
helps to know
experience with
whether
that.
you do your hair or not.
yeah,
Let me just share with you, always do your hair, because I
Yeah.
had a bad experience with this.
I always
Um,
do.
when I first started doing the podcast, there was a guy that contacted me and said, "Hey, I want to do my first English speaking podcast from Portugal." I'm like, "Okay, great," and I didn't even think about it being a video. Like, didn't even cross my mind. And it was first thing in the morning because it's the time for us to both be together. I get on there, I looked horrid. Oh my gosh. Like, I looked like I just crawled out of bed. It was terrible. I didn't have my setup right, nothing. And I was just like, great. And so this is their first American, speaking video. It's like, oh, please don't promote that. Whatever you do, it was terrible. Oh,
Oh, that's
so now I
funny.
don't care if it's just a video. I'm like, oh, let me look up.
let me
What are you
see what I
saying?
look like.
Deborah, I have a question. Do you have a podcast? Do you have your podcast?
I don't have a podcast yet,
Okay.
but the Lord's got a few things brewing out there. So you just never know.
Okay.
I've had a
A
few
lot of work.
opportunities. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
To do a podcast is a lot of work, though. I mean, it's, so being a guest, if you're not ready to start your own podcast yet, being a guest is really the best way to do it, to kind of get you more familiar, more comfortable with, speaking. The other thing with doing that video that the Pod Match does, it helps the people that might have you on their podcast hear you and see you, so they
Yes.
will know, oh, okay, you can speak without going, every
Oh,
other
you
word.
know,
Although they can take those
you
out.
never know though.
Yeah.
It's been really good for me to do. And when I first started, I probably wasn't like and kind of emotional still, just trying to learn my voice to tell my story. But I'm also I tell it in real time, and I tell the host that every time. I can do 10 podcasts in a row and be perfectly fine. And then the 11th one will hit, and for some reason I'll start crying in the middle of it. I mean, it happens. And I always say, we're living this out in real time. And so there might be good days or bad days with my family, my kid, and you don't know when it's going to hit. And so sometimes that makes it better,
Mm-hmm.
that it's real life and we're talking about hard things, and it's okay to be emotional. And so it's been really good. I've met some great people um, over the last year just doing this, and I am just so excited. I've got tons coming up in the next month or so. Also, I'm trying to really push hard for, of course, I'm LGBTQ subjects. So we don't do Pride Month, we do Promises Month in my group. And so I'm really trying to book a lot of things for Promises Month in June to speak about the book and everything that I talk about. And so getting to kind of the technical stuff, we kind of talked about how I get booked. I know it doesn't look like it right now, but I have really good lighting and really good. So one thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to invest, and I will put this all on the group as well, what I use. I did a lot of research in what was really good, economical, reasonable, kind of entry level equipment. And so it's not that you have to have fancy equipment, but you do have to have some good equipment to make it really, really good. And so I have a really good microphone that I have purchased, and I will put I've got my little box because I will put the brand and everything that I researched. And this is a great microphone. It is really a good. Usually have a host will tell me that that's a great microphone, And so it's a good one. Webcam. I don't have my webcam on tonight. It's just the computer webcam. That's why it's kind of crazy. My lighting's a little crazy tonight, but you're going to want to get a webcam. And here's going to be the tip of the night, which this took me a long time to figure out. You're going to want to get a webcam with a remote control that can zoom in and out, because it will zoom, so it's just so you can like block out all the things. I bought a new webcam originally, and it was like, I didn't know I bought a wide angle one, and I just was forever like, I can't get the background, everything's, it was making me crazy. And then I kind of did some research and I realized I could get one with a zoom feature. So when you do get a webcam, make sure you get one with a remote that you can zoom in and out, because I'm telling you, it's worth it. It's worth every penny to do that. Let's see, what else do I have that's awesome that I need? Oh, lighting. So I bought a set of lights. You're probably looking at maybe $150, which again, everything, is expensive. But if you really want to get into the podcast scene, you're going to need some good studio lights. And I will post the ones I use on there. They're just panel lights. They're continuous lights. I'm a photographer also in my day job. And so I kind of did some research of what would be a good, just basic lighting kit for this. And I think what I have is awesome. And you can adjust it to light and dark and warm and cool. And, they're just, for an entry level light, they're really good lights. And so lighting, microphone, and webcam, those are going to be the things that you're going to want to really focus on if this is something you're really wanting to start to do. And then you want to start your background. You want to make sure you have a great background. I tend to change my backgrounds all the time because I'm crazy like that. But I have several, depending on what I'm doing. I have a background for whatever podcast I'm on. I have several different things I will do. If I know it's something, I have a white wall, just a plain white wall. I like to use that a lot. Sometimes I'll just, if it's more conversational, I'll use the background here, clean it up, of course, because it's a little crazy right now. But those are just some of the things I do. So does anybody have any questions about any of the equipment or anything that?
Do you ever use a green screen?
I don't have a green screen because I don't really have the knowledge to know how to do that, to make that look good. I'm sure you could use a green screen. But at first I thought I really wanted something plain, but I spent a lot of time searching and like watching videos of podcasts and things, and I'm forever like screenshotting them so I can see their backgrounds. And I really have decided I like the ones that kind of have a little something in the background. So that is something that I usually try to do. I'll switch out my things on the wall or whatever. I have different pictures,
So Debbie, with the green screen too, if you don't have your lighting just right, you'll see like people are fuzzy on their arm.
I won't have an arm or something.
Or if you wear the wrong color, that like if you wear green, you won't be able to see you, only just your floating head or whatever. So the green screen is a little harder. I've seen even on professional, like on CNN or Fox News, where we'll have somebody on there like, do you know your arm is missing? I mean, or whatever with your green screen.
Right, bit of the weather screen.
Yeah.
So do you think those lights are much better than like the light ring?
I have a light ring also. I do think they're better. I mean, they're definitely stronger. And you can adjust the light on them. I do have a light ring. I actually have three. I have one straight ahead, which is the light ring, and then I have my two side lights that come in. And again, that's just the photographer coming out in me. There's probably no need for that. That's probably a little overkill, but that's just kind of what I do for a living. So that's kind of why I have that. Sometimes I'll put the lights behind me just so I like that kind of rim light coming. I like it. So
what microphone do you suggest, as far as like, there's some that you have to look right at and speak, and there's other ones that are like pick up anything. Which one is better?
Right. This one it's called a dynamic microphone, and it only picks up, like, I think there's a setting on it if I remember correctly, but I have it set so it just picks up me. and it doesn't pick up the background. And
Mhm.
I usually do it here in my office, is usually where I record my podcasts. Most of the time, sometimes I go to my photography studio, but most of the time I'm right here. And so it's a quiet room, and so there's not really a lot of other noise, unless sometimes my cat will get in the window during a podcast. That has happened a few times from the outside and try to, it's my cat, It's actually the neighbor's cat. It's not our cat, but he comes in here. So sometimes he makes an appearance on the window, but
That is
hopefully
too
not
funny.
always.
You mentioned about you're talking about the microphone, all that. We see people with headphones or ear, what do we call those? And why do you need that? And why would you choose to use it or not use it or whatever? Do you know?
Earphones or the Madonna microphone?
Both. Yeah.
Both.
Either
So
one. Yeah.
most podcasts want you to use headphones. So you will need to get some headphones. And honestly, most of them like the wired ones, not the wireless. Sometimes they'll tell you to use the wired headphones. I think that's just for a better connection because Bluetooth can come and go. And so sometimes it's staticky. So they really like you to use the wired headphones.
They
So
do
I
though. I mean,
usually
like,
use those.
does that help you hear them or them hear you? I don't quite get that.
I think well, you can hear them, but I think it helps just like the noise. I think it helps just like keep all the noise down. But yeah, it definitely you can hear them better and not have all the crazy stuff, going on. And so I 100% always wear headphones.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are they big headphones that you can
Both.
see?
I have big ones. If I know it's not going to be recorded for video, I will wear my big ones because I can hear better with those than I can the little ear pod ones. So, but if I think they're going to record it for video, I don't know. I just feel kind of silly with these big headphones on
Mhm.
in the video. But
So
I
Lori has,
definitely always wear them.
sorry, Lori has something in her ears right now. Is that something like that you use for
Just
yours?
like that. Yep,
Okay.
plug them in, just like
All
she's
right.
doing.
And you'll tell us on your when you post it on Facebook what those are, those different ones.
Yeah, I'm sure. Are those Apple, Lori, or just your Apple? Yeah, she's just got Apple earphones on. You can use anything that plugs in that's not wireless. But again, usually when you get that, there's a list they will send you, like a pre-list, if you will, a checklist, and each host usually tells you what they want you to have. There's a couple of different programs people use. Riverside tends to be one that a lot of podcasters use, and so I've kind of gotten a little bit familiar with that one. There's a couple of others. Some people will do it on Zoom. I've recorded a couple Zoom ones as well. But it's just been it's I mean it's really amazing how it goes out. And I know, so I have my personal website, and I have been the thing I need to do better at, which is I have my own hangups, is after I record it and it gets released, I'm really bad about putting it out there,
Mhm.
like on my social media saying I did this. I'm 100% horrible about doing that. Because I just get, all up in my head about it. And so I finally have just decided I have to start doing that. And I've started doing it just this year on my Instagram page. And I am getting hits on my personal website because, of course, they'll link to that, and they'll in the show notes they'll always link your sites and your books and all of that. I am getting hits from all over the U.S., and I'm getting them hit. I've gotten several from England and Ireland, and I mean, all kinds of crazy places are hitting my website. And I'm sure it's because they're listening to some of these podcasts.
Things that I've heard
You
too is that you
tell,
want, oh, go ahead.
no,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
That you want to offer their audience something free, so and that
Yes.
helps you if you have that lead magnet on your website. It
Yes.
helps you collect their one of the reasons that you're going on the podcast is to sell your, I mean, is to tell your message, but it's also to say, hey, I want to gather information from their listeners. I mean, that's helping you build your your email list.
Yes.
So if you have
Yes.
something to offer them, what host wouldn't want you to offer something free to their, their people? And so that's something
Right.
to think about. What can you offer them? It's a download of some sort. It doesn't cost you anything to do. but put it on your website and tell them like, it's lisaireland.com/ podcast or whatever it is, that you would call it. So anyway,
Right.
that's
Are you able to track the growth on your website or your email list?
I'm just starting to do that. I have not been great about kind of building my email list on my website. And so I'm just now kind of in that process of getting that started. So I'm slowly building it. Yes. And I just talked to Tammy about this today. I would love to be able to track, even with sales of the books, like, I did 4 podcasts this week and then my sales went up, and so it's going to be interesting to track it this spring, kind of after a few months of doing all these podcasts, hitting it really hard to see how that has helped the growth of my website and sales of the book.
And remember too that your podcast, you record it one day, but it might not come out for another month or so, depending on the
Maybe
podcast, or it
even
could be
longer.
live. Yeah.
Yeah,
Or it
so
could be
I
live. So
recorded
you
some
never
in
know.
January that won't be out till October. Sometimes
Wow.
they record a whole like 9 months in advance. I mean, you
Hmm.
don't know. I mean, they usually tell you when it's going to come out. I've got a whole bunch coming out this summer that I recorded in February. And so, you don't, it may not be anytime soon.
So that's something to look at too when you're looking for podcasters. If like June for you is Promises Month, is that
Right.
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
And so
promises month.
if you know that June is that month, you're going to want to in January or even before
Yes.
start contacting these podcasters to say, hey, can you put me on? And sometimes they'll ask you, when would you like it to come out? When's a good time for you? Because they want you to be successful too. But remember, like Debbie was saying, don't forget to promote that podcast when it comes out, because they've taken you on for free into their podcast and given
Yes.
you access to their audience. You need to honor that, and by putting it, and I'm preaching to myself, not to anybody else, to myself. So it's something to remember. And I'm sure that they look at, I would imagine, podcasters, if they're going to pick you, they're going to look at your
Right.
website and say, hey, do they even put that on there, or do they, is there any of their other ones there? So something to think
Right.
about.
Absolutely. 100%. I need to do so much better about that. And I'm getting it. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. Let's see what else. It's all about building relationship too. And so I know I've recorded several just in the last month that they've asked me to come back on in June. And so it's always about just building that relationship. Um, and it's about reviews in the podcast world, just like it is in the book world. Everybody needs reviews. There you can get into, maybe some, like I don't know if I'll ever get to the point I can pick and choose, which I'm a firm believer in. If God opens the door, I'm gonna walk through it. But like I said before, it doesn't matter if they have 5 listeners or 50,000. Someone needs to hear that message that you have, and so I never discount the small things, because the small things can be the big things. We just don't know the connections that God's going to make, or who's going to listen and just happen to know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody, and you just don't know what is going to happen with your story. And so I like I said, I was never a huge podcast listener, but I'm learning to put in the headphones and go walk and listen to something. And it's been so good for me. It's been great. And like I said, the pod match that's been a great resource. It's been worth every penny for me so far to do it.
Awesome. That's really, I hadn't heard of that before, so that's awesome. Another thing you said, Riverside is a program that podcasters use. If you could also let us know some of the other programs so
I
that maybe we can
will.
make ourselves familiar with those. So when a podcaster says, hey, I'm on this, you're like, oh, I know that.
I
It's
know.
always
I'm like,
nice to be
okay, yeah,
prepared. Yeah. So that'd be better.
it is. It is. I have found I have only ever maybe had one interview that was kind of awkward, maybe not bad, but sometimes you just don't mesh maybe well. But most of them, it's always really good, and most of the hosts have always been very, very good about just inviting you in and asking questions. Sometimes it's a list of questions that you've determined beforehand, and sometimes it's just a conversation that you have and you don't know where the Holy Spirit's going to take it. And sometimes that's happened a lot. I've talked about things I hadn't planned on talking about. And kind of another thing, since I do so many, I don't want to be that person that says the same thing on every single podcast.
Yeah.
And so I make sure that I have my story and I can tell it from different angles and I can tell it with different examples and stories, because I always want it to be fresh and different.
One of the things that you can do too, that I've done is when I am getting ready to do the podcast, I send the podcaster a list of questions, possible questions. Not that they have to ask me those, but that way, if they haven't read the whole book, or they don't really know what my ministry is about, or whatever, somebody's ministry is about, it helps them, and they appreciate that. Not one of them has ever said, "Oh, don't send that to me." Like, they're usually pretty grateful that they don't have to come up with a question, and you know what your stories are too, so that kind of helps a little bit for you if you're nervous about it. But one thing to remember is that they want you to be as successful as you can on the podcast. They want you to have fun and enjoy it, because I mean, think about if you're listening to somebody that's a podcaster and they're just like, and we've all probably heard, one of those shows, it's like, oh my gosh, poke me in the eye right now just to keep me awake. They're so bad.
Right.
But then there's those people that was like, you listened to them for an hour and you thought it was 10 minutes because they were so fascinating, and you wanted to hear what they had to say. So you want to be that second person, as much as you can. I work with a radio owner in here in Texas, and he said authors are the worst about coming on the radio, because typically they're so shy, they're introverted, and so when he gets one that's not, he's like, oh my gosh, you actually, you're not, you'll talk to me. So just remember, they're there to make you successful. They're not there to hurt you in any way or to call you out or anything like that. And if they do, you could just hang up, whatever, oops, my internet went out,
Wait, lost internet. What happened?
But
Well, that brings me to a question though. Do you feel like a podcast has an advantage over like a radio interview, or are they about?
Are you
Because
asking
I've done
me or
more
Debbie?
radio interviews. I'm sorry, what, Dee Dee?
You were asking me or Debbie?
Well, I was asking her, but then I thought you said something that I missed.
I every week I have like a couple of blurbs that come out on the radio here in town. I don't know that it's really worth the money. It was kind of nice to invest in my community on that level, because I don't know that people really, for me, I don't really listen to the radio. I listen to Sirius XM, and so it's not any commercials or really, very much. And so for me personally, I think podcast, because when I'm listening to a podcast, I'm actually listening to somebody tell me something, where the radio, I just want music. So that's kind of my opinion. But what about you, Debbie? What do you think?
I've not done I've done one radio thing, but I've not really done a lot of radio interviews. But I'm kind of with Dee Dee. I don't know if radio is kind of a dying bird, because people do stream all music and stuff now. And so I actually read the other day that podcasts are, they're studying. They're not growing like they did for a while, because it seems like everybody has a podcast. They're kind of just studying out, but live videos are really popular right now. And I don't know if that's YouTube Live, if that's social media live. I really don't know a lot of that yet, but it's just that authentic, like you just say it and it's out there in the world, is real popular right now.
It's fun. I do that on Instagram every Friday morning, and it's just fun to have people come on that you see every week. You can't see them, but you see their names, so it's gives you someone like you're talking to somebody. But I do YouTube. I haven't done podcasting, but I think podcast is the new radio.
I do.
I
agree.
So I think radio still has some benefit, but I do think it's the new radio.
I think if anybody asked you,
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Like Debbie
I was
says,
just going to say, what did you do, Andy? What do you do, Andy?
So I'm on Instagram on Friday mornings at 9 o'clock Eastern time. 9 o'clock Eastern time. And I do Faith Friday, and it's a live teaching on scripture, on a verse that we're studying for the month. And so it's just fun. I enjoy it. But
Name?
I see a lot of YouTube live that's
Mhm.
really growing. I haven't started doing that yet because I haven't figured out how to do that with my good camera.
Mhm.
Because it's so easy on my phone for Instagram.
You're,
So
you're
So
so good at
if
that,
I
though.
get you on Instagram, I can see what that is that you do.
Yeah.
yes,
Is it
Okay.
under
and
your
I say,
name or your
hey
ministry?
Esther, good to see you.
We're
Yeah.
gonna look you up.
Hey,
I
Andy,
I'm at Words by Andy Lee on
Okay.
put that in the
Instagram.
Okay.
chat. Put it in the chat for me, Andy.
Okay, we'll do that.
Yep. And I've gone in there a couple times and listened to her. She's good. You'll enjoy it. You feel like you're there having coffee with her. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I have
And that's
wanted
what you
to. I
want.
haven't
You
gotten the
want there
nerve
to,
up yet.
Mhm. Yep.
One of these days. One of these days I will. I will say I think the advantage to podcasts over maybe radio or whatever is you can search your niche. So
Mhm.
if I want to listen to a podcast about young moms and the trials of young, I can Google that or whatever, and I can pull up podcasts that have that niche. If I want to
Mhm.
listen to a podcast about money,
Yeah.
I can search for that. And so it's such a good like way to just listen to what you want to be fed, not just what the radio is playing,
Yeah.
you know.
Right.
But
Right.
like you said, Debbie, if there's an opportunity for you to speak someplace, it might be just one person that listens to that
I'm
radio,
gonna go.
go and do it. I would
Mhm.
suggest doing it. And plus it gives you more practice. And another thing is it's building your resume of where you have spoken, where you've been, I mean, so all of those, are good, to do
Right.
that.
Yes, and it takes a lot. I mean, I don't know if it'll ever be comfortable. I don't know. It's getting easier and I don't panic as much prior to going on as maybe I did at the beginning. Um, but it's not natural for me, I guess is the word I'm trying to say. It's still going to always be that challenge. But then that's kind of fueling as well. It kind of fuels you to be, okay, I can do this. I can do hard things. I can,
Heard on,
God's with
Well,
you.
Debbie, you sound natural.
I don't know about that.
Yeah,
So
um,
yeah.
exactly.
I
So
heard on,
yeah,
I,
it's
I,
good. It's good.
I heard on American Idol, they asked one of the contestants at one point, this is an old one, said, "Are you nervous?" And the kid said, "Yeah, he was." And so that's good because that means you care about what you're doing. So I think that
Mhm.
it's that
Exactly.
thing when you're going to go on a podcast or whatever, it's important to you and you care about what you're going to say. I think also if you've got your setup, for me
Mhm.
anyway, if my setup is set up and I'm good, then I feel comfortable more to
Right.
speak because you're going to speak about things that you know. I mean, you're not going to go
Right.
on a podcast. I mean, I wouldn't go on a podcast and talk about finances. Like that's not going to
Right.
be. No one's going to listen to
No
that.
one's
I'm
gonna
just saying.
ask me to do that,
Yeah.
right?
Or anything technical is like, nope, that's not going to be my
Right.
my genre. So just know that you're going to match up with where you fit, best. So
Exactly. Exactly. And I'm just going to challenge everybody to, make a challenge. I challenged myself at the first of the year. I'm like, I'm going to record 10 podcasts a month at least. That's going to be my goal this year. I'm going to do at least 10 every month. And so far I'm on track. So
awesome.
I'm just going to keep at it. And, I believe in the message and I believe in what the Lord's doing in the book and in me mostly. And I just want to share that with anybody that'll listen. And so God is good. And when I go on, I talk about the goodness of God. I talk, about the Bible. I talk about his word. I don't just talk about, it's not about promoting a book. It's about promoting the Lord and his goodness.
Mhm. Mhm.
What's the
It's okay to
average
promote your
length?
book too.
Huh?
So it's okay to promote your book too.
Well, it is. And here's another thing. Remember to have one beside your desk because they always say, what's your book? Sometimes I'll have one behind, but not always. And sometimes I forget and I'm like, yeah, I don't have one in my room. I'm sorry. So always put a book by your computer so you can grab it. That's something I've learned.
Another
What
place you
is
could,
the average length of your podcasts?
And most of them go, they say, usually they'll say it's about a 30-minute podcast. 30 to 40 minutes is probably on the lower end. It seems though that I probably ramble more than most people. And so it seems like they're usually about 50 minutes. Sometimes I did one, it was about an hour and 15 not too long ago. It was a little
I've
bit
been
longer.
doing
We really got
Oh.
into some stuff.
And
Usually about
10 a
35.
month.
Huh?
Okay.
Yeah.
10 a month. That's a commitment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm committed to just wherever God opens a door. I just want to be faithful to walk through it. And so
Do you send a copy of your book to the person ahead of time? Do
I
you?
don't. That, I've thought about that before, but usually so in my notes, so like on my author page, like it has, my books and links and all of that. And I'm assuming most of them do their homework. And
Yeah.
I would say half of them probably, maybe not half, maybe that's a bigger number. Some will read it prior to you being on. Others, will just maybe just ask the questions, in your bio kind of thing. I
Yeah.
have mailed a couple out after. Before, I felt like the Lord said to mail them a book, and I have a couple of different
Mhm.
times. I've mailed one. I did one in advance to a kind of a bigger podcast I was on. I know he had a kind of a bigger audience, and I thought I wanted him to have a copy
Mhm.
up front. And he was actually kind of personally going through the same situation with like a niece or a cousin or something. And so I kind of wanted him to be really like ready for the interview. So that's
Mhm.
why I did
Mhm.
with him particularly. But normally I don't send one out.
Yeah.
Also send the Kindle version of it too. So if you need help with that, just let us know.
Oh, yeah,
Let
that'd
Tammy
be
know. That way you don't
great.
have to
Mhm.
spend any money, doing it that way. We really don't mind sending those out.
Good to know.
And
Okay.
another way to find podcasts is to ask Chat GPT.
Oh, see, I forget about you.
And they will come up, he, they, she, it will come up with some really good, like, hey, can you give me podcasts that speak to, whatever, what your subjects are, different ways like that. But yeah, they'll give you the contact
What
information.
was that
Everything.
again? What was that again, Dee Dee?
I got it in
Chat.
the chat. It's Chat GPT.
Yeah.
It's the AI, the artificial intelligence platform. I'm sure there are other ones. I don't know what the names of them are, but if you look in our chat, I've put it in there so you can see it. And then
Oh, okay.
put it in. I think it's chatgpt.com, but I'm not sure about that part. But I use it all. There's a free version of it and there's a paid version. I use it all the time to like do research stuff. I'm like, hey, because I'm really lazy about research, so I'm just gonna say that. I'm not my favorite. So yeah.
Now, most podcasts, I have personally not applied to be on any that cost money to be on.
Let me tell
And
you
I
what
know
that
that
with you,
sounds
Linda.
silly. That's another thing I didn't realize before I started all of this was sometimes you have to pay to play. And, sometimes you have to pay to be on a podcast. And I've just made the decision that I don't know if that's for me. It's not about the money really. It's just more about I don't think the gospel's for sale, and I don't like people profiting off of the gospel. And so
Yeah,
I
I
don't.
so
I'm not going
agree.
to say I'm not ever going to do it, but I don't have any intentions as of now to pay to be on a podcast.
Well, ladies, I guess we should wrap it up unless you've got more, Debbie, that you want to share with us.
No, that's it.
We
Thank you so
I'm out of
much.
words.
Does anybody have a last question they want to ask? A burning question? No burning questions? So we will meet again in 2 months, the second Monday of May. The reason we changed it to the second Monday was that first Monday always seems to have some kind of holiday or some kind of situation going on that, whatever, Tammy and I were like second Monday. So that's why we've changed it to that. But so I don't know what the date is on that, but I'll get in touch with you and you'll know. So thank you so much, ladies. We'll stop recording also.